Podcast. 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 Yeah, welcome to the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. Jason Weigandt here. Special edition of the show. I think it's the first time, excuse me, geez, really? That's how we start the show? First time I think I've interviewed members of the MXGP community on this show. I want to give a tip of the visor, literally, to MIPS. MIPS is a helmet liner, and it's available in a variety of different brands of helmets. Kind of like you can buy a variety of different brands of dirt bikes, but they all have Dunlop tires. There's a variety of helmets out there that have MIPS technology. It is a liner inside the helmet that allows the helmet to slide on your head. So when you hit the ground, it reduces the rotational impact to your brain. Anyway, shout out to MIPS. They're not a sponsor of this show, but they did help connect me with the Honda HRC team in Europe, and I was able to get time with Tim Gajser, the multi-time MXGP champ, and his young teammate, the Australian Mitch Evans. So it was really cool. Been trying for a long time to set up an interview with Tim. I had it almost in the bag at the end of 2019, and then I had to go to Australia for a month, and then by the time I got home, it was like holidays time, and I totally forgot. And then last season, we all know, was nutty and crazy. So finally, I get time with Tim, who I've wanted to talk to for a long time. And Tim Gajser and Mitch Evans both have Yoshimura exhaust systems on their Hondas. They were on a works kind of prototype of the now production version of the Honda last year. They had Yoshimura exhaust, and there's a variety of Yoshimura exhaust for a variety of Hondas out there. Not only the Works Edition Honda that comes with a Yoshimura exhaust, but also an RS12 system that you could buy if you don't have the Works Edition. And remember, Honda's done a unique thing. They still sell the previous generation, the one that came out in 2017. That generation CRF 450R is still available. People are always saying, give me a little less technology for a little less money. Honda actually does still sell the old 450, and you can, of course, get a Yoshimura exhaust system for it. We're also backed by MX Tech suspension. You got the Lucky Fork, which is a great combination of both great performance but also lightweight, and the National Shock, which is about as close as you can get to a works or factory rear shock. And it's proven because the privateers that are closest to the factory guys use that shock, such as Cade Clayson, making a lot of main events this year. Infant chizzing, just a little bit of chiz in the game of Cade Clayson this year on the PRMX Kawasaki with MX Tech suspension. Cade making a lot of mains. Check them out at mx-tech.com. And a little story here, Just Live CBD came on board with the pod last week. That's justlive.com. Now, I've got some product, and I literally just applied Just Live. Now I'm going to tell you a story. So back, I believe in 2010, at the Washougal National, Ryan Villopoto was injured that year in Supercross. He broke his leg. But Kawasaki, he came out to Washougal, that's his home race, to do some press, sign some autographs, all those things. So we ended up having him as a guest on our The Motocross show, which was our pre-race show back then on Friday. And, dude, he was not pumped on it. He was just a miserable guy that day. And if you knew Villopoto in the racing days, you never knew what you were going to get. Most of the time, it was fine. But there were definitely days where he was a bit moody. And this was one of those days. So, you know, all the small talk in between while we're setting up cameras and stuff, he's just saying, this sucks, that sucks, everything sucks. I mean, look, I remember Villopoto in 2011. He wins an amazing, dramatic, hard-fought Supercross title in Vegas, and he's in the pits, and he's miserable after clinching the title. I mean, racing RV, we know this, right? He wasn't always happy even when he was successful. Nowadays, totally different guy. Pumped all the time. Love talking to him. But in 2010 Washougal, dude, it was tough. So we finished the on-camera interview stuff, and I'm like, dude, if I have to walk back to the pits with this guy, the next 5 minutes are going to be miserable. It's just going to be him complaining about everything. I don't want to deal with it. So I calculated my trajectory. I thought we did the interviews on the Monster Energy stage, which we had at the Nationals back then, and I'm like, I could walk down the stairs with him, or I could jump off the side of this platform, and then we'd be so far apart that it would not be weird that we didn't walk together. I'd be in a completely different area than him. So I calculated the trajectory. I jumped off. It was, 5 or 6 feet, pretty good leap. And I just felt this twinge in my left patella tendon, you know, the thing that connects your kneecap. I'm like, that's going to hurt. Not horrible or anything. Been able to deal with it. but it's definitely not right. And then you know how it gets when you get older? I was like 30 back then, so it was no big deal. But all of a sudden, in the last year or two, it has started to hurt. All you older guys know what I'm talking about. You get like these reruns, the syndicated replay of old injuries that you thought were gone, and they start to come back. So that is my left patella tendon because I was trying to get away from evil small talk with Ryan Villapoto. But I have a solution now. Just Live. They have the cream or the balm, whatever you want to call it. Rub a dime-size bit on the injured part, and it's so far, things are feeling better. And I like to run a lot, so if even I have the slightest bit of knee pain, it really makes a difference day to day for me. So thanks to that for justlive.com for sending me some product. And you folks can get some of your own. Go to justlive.com, and when you're ordering, type in RacerX, lowercase, at checkout, and you get 30% off your order. Just Live, founded by professional athletes Travis Pastrana, Klay Thompson, Alex Morgan, Paul Rodriguez. Klay Thompson? Seriously? The NBA guy? Torn ACL? Now torn Achilles? Dude, I guarantee you he's probably swimming in the Just Live cream and balm. And Travis Pastrana, the injuries, no bounds. So if these guys believe in it, it's probably good. Go to justlive.com. Now let's talk to Tim Gajser on the show. And here's where Tim and I realized that we both know each other without actually knowing each other in person. But it kind of works. Here we go.
I know you. I saw you like on the TV, like because I'm following also Supercross, so okay. I follow you as well. So yeah, I know you.
Gotcha. All right, so yeah, we feel like we know each other, right? Feels like we know
yes.
each other.
Yeah. Feels like that, yeah.
There we go. I appreciate it. Hey, I'll start here kind of casually. How do you manage the schedule like right now? Your season's been pretty much pushed back. I guess you have a pretty good idea of when you'll start, but how weird and different is your schedule once you found out you have to wait even longer? Do you keep doing the same stuff, or are you having to adjust?
I have to adjust, definitely.
Okay.
But it's kind of like, it's so weird. Let's say that we have past 2 years was weird, like with the COVID, with everything.
Yep.
It's kind of like, last year was something new to everyone. This year we kind of like know what to expect and what to do in these kind of situations where we have delays of the schedules of the races, stuff like that. So I continue to train, but definitely I changed the training a little bit because I don't want to overtrain myself because we still have like 2 months until the first GP.
Right.
But anyway, I'm trying to stay in good shape, training hard. Also, I'm going to do now couple of races here in Europe just to warm up a little bit. Some national races, here in Italy. We're going to start this week in Majora. I'm going to do first race and then couple of more just to warm up a little bit,
What you guys always seem good at is when you do some of these warm-up races or other nationals in between the GPs, it seems like if it goes good or bad, it doesn't always necessarily predict how the season's going to go. So are you going into these races saying, hey, I'm world champ, I need to win everything? Or however these warm-up races go, it doesn't really matter so much. How do you manage that?
Let's say, of course, every race I'm entering, my goal is try to win, but I think the biggest goal is to just warm up a little bit,
Yep.
because now I haven't raced for past 5 months since Arco, since last GP.
Wow.
So it's been like a while. So it's just to get back in the race rhythm, So that's the main purpose of doing these races.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing that blows my mind the most about you guys is your season is so long and you have so many ups and downs. You had races last year, you had bike problems or crashes or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's not looking good. And then it all worked out fine.
Yeah.
How do you manage those ups and downs? Like when you leave a race and you have a bike problem or a crash, you leave points on the table. Are you crushed? Yeah. Or are you aware, hey, man, there's so many motos. I can't let this get me too down.
Like you said, the season is pretty long. And I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
The consistency is the most important thing, you have many ups and downs. Everybody has. in the season, but the winner is the one who made the least mistakes on the end, you know?
Yeah.
But of course, you know, bad motos, bad GPs, you know, of course you feel bad, but
Sure.
you try to regroup as soon as possible because we have our races every weekend. Last year, even every 3 days, you know, because of the schedule that they did because of COVID.
Yeah.
So you don't really have time to really think too much about it because, you know, you have to make ready or you have to make ready yourself for next race, you know. So you don't think too much. You try to put that on side. Of course, you lose a lot of points, but, you know, you hope for a better race next week. So, yeah, that's how it is, you know. Like I said, we have 20 GPs in a year.
Whew.
It's quite a lot of motos, races. But like I said, you know, you try to be as consistent as possible, and that's it.
Do you almost kind of know, hey, look, everybody's going to have a few bad ones here and there? Do you think that way?
Not really, because, you know, you don't want to do these mistakes, you know. Of course, everyone wants to have a good season, you know, without mistakes, without having a bad moto, without, you know, throwing away the points. But like I said, you know, the winner is always the one who makes the least mistakes.
Right.
On the end, in I don't know how many motos we have, 35 in a year or something like that, 36 overall.
Yep.
So yeah, it's like that. So yeah.
Hey, last year you had a new bike. Now that's essentially the production bike. Now we've seen it in person. Does your bike change a ton this year compared to last year?
Not really, because last year we have completely new bike. So for this year we made a couple of changes, but they were not really big. Some little changes, but basically the bike is quite similar to the one that I was riding in 2020. So yeah.
We don't see that in the U.S. because they have a production rule. When you bring in an all-new bike like you did last year, is it actually changing a lot? Like what you raced at the end of the year, was it similar to what you had at the beginning, or are there major changes going on and as you learn this bike because you're so ahead when the year starts?
Here, I mean, we are testing basically almost every 2 months over here. And Japanese always bring something new.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like, it depends also how good you feel on the bike. You know, if you are struggling on the beginning of the season and you didn't really found, you know, everything that suits you, then you are kind of like searching for it.
Yep.
But as soon as you found, you know, the bike that suits you, that you like, that you enjoy, that you feel one with it, then I just like to keep the bike the same for the rest of the season.
So when you get an all-new bike like you did last year, it's not like you go to round one and they're saying, hey, we're not totally ready, there'll be new parts coming. Was your bike at the end of the year pretty similar to it was at the beginning of the year, or did it get new stuff?
It was quite similar because already immediately when I sit on new bike, I felt quite home with it.
Okay.
Little changes, and then we were set. So let's say last year around January, February, I found already, you know, the setup that I like it.
Yep.
And basically during the season, we did just little changes, just little clicks on the suspensions, you know, these kind of things about the electronics, some offs, but the rest was quite similar because I was feeling good. So there was not major big changes.
Gotcha. Hey, when you see the success, then the production bike comes out and they race it over here in the U.S. I know you said you follow Supercross. Roxon was great on the bike immediately. Do you feel good when you see that? When you're like, do you have a little connection with that team? As a Honda guy, does it make you feel good to see, oh yeah, they're doing well with the same bike I helped develop a little bit?
Yes, I mean, like, also with Kenny, we were talking a little bit because last year I was already riding the new bike.
Cool.
And Kenny was still with the old bike.
Yep.
And he was asking me many times, how is the new bike? So we were talking a little bit. And now when I see, how well he's doing with the new bike, how comfortable he's feeling on it, it makes me happy, because of course, we are teammates. We are both riding for HRC. And he's good. He's doing really good this year. So, of course, I'm happy.
Cool. All right. One thing I've always wondered about you, your backstory of coming from a relatively small country to this success. Were you racing? Was there like a local racing scene, and that's what you did, or did you just ride by yourself? Did you have to go other places at a pretty young age to kind of get noticed? What is the local racing scene like in Slovenia, and then how did you branch out from there? I've always wondered that.
Actually, it was difficult. It was very difficult on the beginning. Like you said, I'm coming from a really small country, Slovenia. We are just a little bit over 2 million in all the country, people, I mean.
Yep.
So, let's say that maybe until 3-4 years ago, when I became first-time world champion in MX2, nobody really know what kind of sport is motocross.
Okay.
So, it was difficult to came from such a small country. Also, I'm coming from the family that we didn't have really a lot. My father gave everything for motocross, so we were kind of like struggling. I was riding with the old bikes. But, I was always trying to be successful. My dreams was that one day I will be a world champion, and I always follow that dream. And, first we started to do some European championship races when I was back in 65.
Okay.
Then I became a European champion in 65, then 2 years later in 85. Then we went to 1 to 5. And as you know, 1 to 5 races are on the same track and the same dates like MXGP.
Right.
And from then on, the team started to notice me. And then, first I was riding for KTM 2 years in MX2. And then I signed with Honda in 2014. And from then on, I started to live my dreams, I would say.
Are there a lot of local tracks where you grew up, or how did that part work?
Not really. Let's say that we have maybe just 5 tracks in the whole country in Slovenia.
Yep.
The official ones. But I always have my private tracks, close to my house. So basically I was training all the time over there.
Gotcha.
My father was building the tracks for me, and I was training just on my own tracks. But overall, like I said, motocross in Slovenia was not that big. But now with every year, it's getting more popular. Now almost everybody, let's say everybody knows what kind of sport is motocross in Slovenia. So it's growing, and that's really good.
Yeah, that is cool. Right, so you could ride pretty much whenever you wanted to because you had private tracks, but to really race, you had to move on. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, one of the reasons we're talking here is because I know you guys signed a deal with MIPS. Are you familiar with how that works? Did you already know what it was, or is this a whole new thing for you?
I kind of know some things, but it was kind of new to me.
Okay.
But I'm wearing the Fox helmet already now for past 4 years, 5 years.
Yep.
And before 3 years, I think they started to do helmets with MIPS products. So I kind of know what that means. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Maybe no part of riding gear has changed as much as helmets lately. Do you keep up on that? It seems like every year someone's coming up with some new thing to make helmets safer. That's got to make you feel pretty good as a rider. Is that something you notice?
Yes. The helmet is really important, the bikes and everything are getting faster. The developing of the bikes are getting, they are really fast. And also I think it's really important to take care of the gear, to also develop the gear because of the high speeds, bigger jumps that we are going on the track. So, of course, it's really good to see that, all the companies that are producing the helmets and all the gear, for the motocross equipment, also the protectors and everything. They are also developing these things, so they are going with the timing, so how the bikes are improving, also the gear is improving, and that's good, yeah.
The cool thing about MIPS is that a bunch of different helmet brands use it. So it's if you come up with something good on the safety front, they're not hiding it from each other, which I think is pretty cool. Like, if this works, we're all willing to use it, because it seems like they're a little more into, we're just trying to be safe here. If we get an advantage, hey, that's cool, but let's all try to work together on this. That's what I noticed. You know that, like, MIPS is in a bunch of brands. That's pretty cool.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
because I really don't
that's
follow
cool.
the other brands.
Yep.
Just Fox. But like, I mean, that sounds good, because when we are talking about protection, I think it's really important to do a good protection, to that everybody is safe, that everybody have a good product, and that's the right thing, I think.
That's neat. I'm just gonna be honest, dude. This is what we always talk about you here in the U.S. We will watch these highlights, bro. You mentioned the high speeds. You have some crashes, man. You have some serious crashes, and somehow you get up a lot of the time. You've had some of them not go well. This is just what we see over here. I don't know if that's something you think about, but man, you're pretty good at taking a hit. I can tell you that.
I mean, just a couple of days ago, I was watching all highlights of my crashes.
Oh, boy.
And, they are like, some of them, they were like nasty, big ones.
Yep.
I'm really, really happy and thankful to walk away from these big ones, because, it's, when you hit the ground at such a high speed, the impact and everything is really high.
Sure. It's
really big. So, just happy to walk away from all these crashes.
I would assume there's nothing you could say like that I've learned to do this, or I've trained to do that. Is there anything you've done to be able to do that, or is it just the way it's worked out?
I mean, like, it's really difficult to talk about these things, because, it happens so quickly that, it's even difficult to put your hands in front of your head, when you crash at 80 or 90 k's per hour, fourth gear wide open.
Yep.
Everything happened in less than a second, so everything happens so quick. Sometimes, of course, if you have time, you try to save, you try to fall on the side, you try to roll or something like that. But like independence of the crash, what kind of crash you have. If you have time to think a little bit, what you're going to do, or it just hits you from nowhere.
Sure.
So.
So the goal this year is to just not have those. I guess that's probably the best solution, right?
Yes, I agree, definitely.
Okay.
Try to be consistent, try to stay off the ground, be smart. Like I said, the season gonna be long. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be quite similar to the one that we have last year.
Okay.
So the race is gonna really follow, each other really quickly. So we don't gonna have a lot of time to recover, to rest.
Yep.
So like I said, try to be in good shape when the season starts. Be consistent, be smart, enjoy, and that's it.
Hey, were you feeling that when you had those multiple races crammed into 1 week? Did you not quite feel 100% recovered by some of those races toward the end of it?
Honestly, like, I was feeling really good. I never feel that my body didn't recover until the next race.
Yep.
And more the season was going towards the end, more stronger I was feeling. So basically, like, for me, if we have the same schedule like last year, doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But I think also it depends in how good shape you are. Also, like, I think it's really important to predict correctly how to train now in this period. To not overtrain yourself, to not start too early, because then you came on first race 100% ready, and then you have like 20 GPs, and then of course you can't keep that shape during 20 GPs,
Sure.
if you are already 100% on the first GP. So I think the prediction when to be 100% is really, really important.
Yeah, and I feel like you see it. You do see during the season someone starts off really hot, and then they're nowhere to be seen at the end. So it really does happen. So you think that works for you, your experience, or maybe even just your body, you're able to handle it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think everybody in MXGP, have a lot of years under their belt.
Uh-huh.
So everybody try to be ready as much as possible, like everybody have experience, everybody knows how long the season is.
Yep.
And like I said, I think the goal for everyone is like to be at the first GP around 90% ready, and then try to build the momentum, first couple of GPs to warm up a little bit, be there, in hunt, be in top 3, top 5. And then towards the second half of the season starts to, crushing it, try to give your best. You came into great shape and everything.
Gotcha. Hey, they don't make it easy on you by changing the schedule around. It doesn't make it easy to plan all that.
Sorry?
It doesn't make it easy.
Can you repeat?
It doesn't make it easy when they keep flipping the schedule around to figure that all out, though.
Yes, it's difficult, because they delay already twice.
Yep.
The schedule, but it is what it is, it's the same for everyone. So
Sure.
We hope now this change was the last one, and hopefully in the second half of the June we can start with the races and everything. So we will see.
Okay, so there's Tim Gajser. Definitely seems like a nice guy. It is completely different from what I've heard culturally. This whole COVID thing, I don't want to get too into it because it's politically charged, as is everything these days, and I really hate going down those rabbit holes. But here's a little story that I've got. I was at Club MX a few weeks ago, and I met Dominique Thury, who's the German rider who rides for the Club MX team now. And I said, oh, man, what a bummer for you, Nick. You finally get that American Supercross dream, but when you come here, the pits are closed. We don't have a lot of fans. It's not quite the normal experience. But, dude, this guy was still pumped because he said at least living in South Carolina where Club MX is, it's pretty much back to normal life-wise. He said in Germany, it is so locked down, so shut down, no restaurants, masks everywhere, even outside, things like that. It's just so much more locked down than it even is. I know in the United States we're complaining. Some people are, obviously. But compared to Europe, it's much more open in most parts of the United States. So I think we're seeing that reflected right now on how difficult it is to get these GPs going compared to, say, a Supercross season that is going to take place exactly as they scheduled it right off the bat and pretty much at the same time frame that it normally does. And then our motocross series starting when it was scheduled to, which is the end of May. So good luck to Tim. Hope he gets it going. Shout out, of course, to Racer X. The reason I had this podcast done so late in the week is because I did 2 feature stories for the magazine that we'll be putting to bed in the next couple of days. So you'll have it in the mailbox soon, or you can read it on the website, but you do have to subscribe. Go to racerxonline.com/Weege. Get the sticker kit, $30 for the year, not for the month, $30 a year for the subscription. So what's that? $2.50 a month total. And you can read every story on the website now if you're a subscriber, and we'll send you the mag in the mail. A really in-depth story, speaking of Club MX, that I just finished. All the origins of how that came from a random sandpit where Zach Osborne used to ride to a random sandpit Zach Osborne owned, then a training facility, and then Zach is out, but then Zach was back hanging out this week just for fun. Really cool backstory there for Club MX. You got to subscribe to Racer X. Go to racerxonline.com/Weege. Now, let's talk to Mitch Evans.
Yep.
Hey, mate. How you going?
Hey. Oh, there's a good, solid Aussie accent. I like it. There we go. Hey, my first question for you, I was just reading up on it actually a little bit. Your injury last year, I guess that kind of lasted a little while. How's the wrist doing?
Yeah, well, actually, I had 2 injuries last year. I had the shoulder reconstruction in April, and then came back through the season, and then broke my wrist in Spain. So yeah, it's been a long process. The break was much worse than we first thought. So the process took a lot longer than what we would have liked, but finally we're back on the bike, so it's happy days again, but it's still a slow process. I just got to take it day by day. I still have a lot of pain when I ride, so I can only ride once or twice a week, but at least I'm back on the bike and getting in some laps.
Oh, so right now you actually are still getting back. You can't do the full load yet.
Yeah, no, I can only really ride for an hour max before it gets too painful, because also I'm still trying to recover it, get the movement back, try to get as much movement back as I can. So the more riding I do, that means the less physio on it I can do, because the wrist is like one of the joints that take the most amount of beating on a motorbike. So sure. With riding, the more I do, the more I got to just sit and let it recover. So we're still trying to do physio on it, every day basically. So it's a fine balance of being able to try and ride as well as recover the joint.
You know what, though? With how long this series is going to go and even the delay to get it started, this might help you. Like, a lot of guys might come in overtrained for a long season. Do you think there might be a small advantage to having to take it easy early?
Yeah, absolutely. I even found that last year when everybody was still, training full time during the lockdown. So, but I only started riding 2 weeks before the season restarted in Latvia, and everybody else had already been riding for those 3 months. So everyone was already, after a couple of rounds, I heard or read other people doing interviews, and they were complaining about, what week they were already in their training program and how they were already feeling burnt out. But for me, it felt like I was just getting started again. So, especially too, after you have 5 months off the bike, you're just itching to get back on the bike and do some other sort of training other than cycling or gym. So, for me, I'm loving every minute of being back on the bike and being grateful for every day that I get back on the bike. So, and honestly, I don't mind the season starting later. For me, it'd be perfect if it doesn't start till August or September. The later the better. So,
yep.
That's the situation that I'm in. So I'm just going to make the most of it.
How did you feel in the races that did go well for you? Were you satisfied with that? Obviously, a lot of it you got to write off and be like, I was hurt, I wasn't even there. The few times things were good, are you happy with how those went?
Yeah, absolutely. We started the season really strong last year, so I was very pleased with that. It was a little bit disappointing because I didn't really quite reach my goals. The best I finished was top 5 overall, and I really wanted to be on the podium. But every time that I was top 5 overall, it was only just a couple of points I missed out on being on the podium. So it was always really close. But once I started again in Latvia, it was difficult with the 3 rounds back to back, within 8 days, because you're not ready or prepared. And yes, racing that much does improve your fitness a lot. But if I had an extra week or something, those other races could have been a lot better. But it was the same for everyone, so can't really complain too much there. But I was with the amount of injuries that I had and the results that I got, it was the most fun that I've had ever racing, and just that fact alone made it the most enjoyable. And also I was really, that's what made me happy about how I rode. Like, the results on paper weren't so good, but how I felt riding and my fitness and the improvements that I made, I was really stoked on.
Why is that? Why was it so much more fun last year? What was the difference?
I could, many years before, I've started the season really strong and then started to drop off throughout the year, and I struggled to, keep my fitness there. Whereas last year I just kept building every time, and every time I got on the track, I was doing better. I felt better. So it was just that progression of feeling better each time I was out there. It became addictive,
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. So you're still making strides. You still feel like by far you've got much more in you, and if you can get healthy here, better results are yet to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was only just the beginning. Before I broke my wrist, the weekend I broke my wrist, I felt like that was going to be my weekend to either win or end up on the podium. So right. I felt like I was only just sort of getting back to my full potential before another injury struck. But that's the way it goes sometimes. You got to take it on the chin and just get back up. But I can, I've moved across to the other side of the world, not just to make up numbers. I'm here to. My goal is to be world champion. So we're going to keep striving for that.
Yeah. For you, was that always the thing? Was it to always go to the GPs, or was at one point you just thinking you'd stay home? Or is going into Europe or even the United States or something always the goal that you would have to move eventually?
Yeah, the goal was always to move overseas, whether it was America or Europe. I didn't really know. For sure, when I was younger, growing up, we always were able to watch Supercross on ESPN. So, honestly, I never actually followed the MXGP until I got here in 2019. So, my goal was always to get to America and race Supercross there. But since I've moved here, I seen what the Lawrences did, and they moved to Europe first, and maybe I thought, okay, that's a stepping stone of getting to America. But now that I'm here in America, in Europe, and I've seen all these different tracks and different cultures, and I'm actually loving it so much here. So, I got a good program going at the moment, so I'm quite happy where I'm at now.
Hey, help me if I have this right. I've talked to Michael Byrne, who had been your team manager over there for the Donations. Did the Donations, was that part of the thing that got you on the map to GP teams start to notice?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually funny. We're actually here at Majora track today, and that's the First Nations that I did in 2016.
Yep.
I was just a fill-in for Jed Beaton, who had broken his collarbone the week before. So I was a late call-up, and I'd actually never raced a 30-minute moto before until I got here. But that's kind of what opened up my eyes to overseas racing and Europe racing. So from the day I got home from MX on, I put a plan together, and my plan was to, in 2 or 3 years' time, to either make it in America or get to America or get to Europe. And after 2 years, I got the chance to represent Australia again at MX on in Redbud. Thankfully, had some really good results, and that's what put me on the map and got me here a year later. So it was pretty cool to look back and see that, something that you think is just, you're not really worth it or ready for it at the time, but if you put in the hard work and believe it can be done.
Dude, how had you not done 30-minute motos? Were you just that young, or was that not what was going on in Australia? Or were you just that young at that point?
Yeah, I was 17, I believe, and I was still racing the under-19s class in Australia, which is, we do 2 20-minute plus 1 lap motos. Okay. So, and I was still going to school. I was actually in my final year at school, so I wasn't even training full time, and I wasn't really even taking it seriously. I was still going to parties on weekends and having good times with friends, So once I finished school that year, that's when I signed my first factory deal and was able to do racing full time, and that gave the work that I put in then, and the time that I was able to put in the work is what made the biggest difference.
How did you end up as a 450 guy? Now, it's not like you're going through the ranks of starting an MX2 necessarily in the GP, so how did this all work out?
Yeah, so it kind of had a lot to do with Nations as well. Yep. Given that there's 2 spots for a 450 at Nations and only 1 spot for a 250, and I knew with Hunter being in Europe at the time that unless he was injured, there was a better chance for me to make it get a spot on a 450. So that's why I wanted to move to the 450 so early in Australia, and I did that in 2019 and put in a good enough year to get picked for Nations. And so that was part of the goal, part of the plan that I'd put together to get over here. And plus I'm a bigger kid too, so I like the power of the bike and a lot more than a 250. So especially it helps a lot off the starts. And I think even now, I'm probably one of the heaviest guys in the class at the moment. So being on a 250 was a big struggle for me, especially for starts. So, but yeah, the main thing was to get onto a 450 as fast as I can, so then I could get a spot on MX Nations team, and then show myself to the world, really. So and now honestly that I've ridden the 450 for a couple of years, I don't really have any aspirations to race the 250 class. You know, I want to be racing the best in the world, and they're in the 450 class.
Wow, so that was actually your plan. It wasn't like, I can't believe this worked out. You kind of knew that Nations could be your chance to impress people.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't see any other race where, you know, the whole world was watching. So, and, you know, it's difficult because, it's only one race out of the year, but I thought if I can do something good enough, then it's a better shot at just racing and staying in Australia.
Sure. Okay, so you got MIPS on board with you and your team now. I don't know how much you know about that, but it's pretty cool. It's a thing that a couple different helmet companies use, which I think is pretty neat. And the helmet technology, my gosh, it's just evolving so quickly. As a rider, is that something you think about? You just strap it on and go, or do you think like, hey, this is good that they keep stepping up something that's so important?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate about safety, and especially when it comes to protecting something like your head. Yep. You know, you break a bone or something and you can get it plated and it won't ever be the same, but it'll be, you know, you can get by in life. But if you injure your head, you know, bad enough, then sometimes you can never be the same from that. Right. So, and being someone who struggled a lot after they've had a concussion in the past, is something that I rate highly, is helmet safety. So, from the science and technology that I've seen behind MIPS, I think MIPS is the best choice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, what we've learned here is the helmet rotating, like sliding around on your head. It's not just, you don't really take an impact like pow, like into a wall. It's how it all twists and turns, and that really helps with that. So I guess that's what they're learning with science. It's not exactly all it looks, and it's got to make you feel confident because they keep figuring this stuff out. It's got to be good for you. Yep. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, they've gotten the idea from how your brain works inside your helmet, so inside your head. So if it can give you a little bit more room to slide, then it's going to help for sure. But I think that it's with motocross, whenever you crash, it's never just a simple, you know, you land on your head in the same way or something, you know, it's always different every way. So, that's like the hardest part about it too. So, and the forces that we undertake, especially when we crash, is like no other sport really. So, you got to have the best safety equipment, protecting you for sure.
So for you this year, like you said, you could have had a podium overall. You were so close a couple times last year when you're healthy. This is such a long season. I know you're not 100% now, but at some point you'll get there. Do you look at, what is your goal by the end of the season? Is it a certain spot in points? Is it podiums? Is it, I want to win a GP? Where do you set your goal for the year by the time it's over?
Well, for the moment, my goal is just to be on the line at round one at this stage. But if we can achieve that, then for sure my goal is to get podiums. That was my goal last year, and my goal was to win a race and an overall. So it's going to be the same this year, regardless of the injury. I believe if you believe in it enough, then you can make it happen.
Your season is so long over there. There's so many motos. I don't know if you have people whispering this in your ear, but it's like, even if you're not 100% when it starts, who even knows what it's going to look like by like round 15? Do you think about that in the back of your mind to keep your spirits up a little bit? Don't overanalyze what's happening right now?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first came here, you know, everybody was telling me that, and it was kind of hard to put into perspective because in Australia we only have 10 rounds.
Yep.
So every round counts, kind of thing.
Yep.
But when I came here, the first year was 2019, and I remember I was racing the 250 class, obviously, and Prado won round one and then missed round two because he had a little bit of an injury, and I just seen him like rock up to round three, and it didn't even faze him that he had missed a round, you know. So he just knew that it was a long season, that he could get as many championship points and still win the championship. And then I believe he even wrapped the championship up with 2 rounds to go. So he could have sat out round 2, 3, and 4 and still won the championship. No worries. So it's results like that help you take it into perspective, and you got to just look at it and stay calm, even if you have one bad weekend, because the racing goes on, and everyone's got to be ready to go on the line the next weekend, whether you're ready or not. So you got to show up 100% each weekend.
That's right. It's bizarre to me to follow over here how guys can have horrible races and then 6 months later, like, it all worked out. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Cheers, mate. Nice chat with you here. Yeah, I had talked about it with Burner a couple times about how this all came together. So good for you. You made it happen. Good for you. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks. Definitely very appreciative of Burner too. So he helped out a lot in that process. But good talking to you, mate. I'm a fan of the Weed Show, so I watch it every weekend before the races. So
hey, if
good
it ever
good to finally talk to you.
That's cool. Yeah, if it ever goes back to normal, who knows? It'd be fun to go to a GP or two, or hopefully a Donations again, and then we'll do it there. It'll be cool.
Yeah, all right, that'll be sweet. Hey, say good day to all the Aussies over there for me, eh?
You got it. There's tons of them. I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Mitch Evans. All the Aussies are cool, right? They're just cool. Guaranteed. I talked to him a tiny bit, I think, at Redbud a couple years ago, but I knew he'd be cool. They always are. Also, shout out to David Bulmer, or as we used to call him, a year in MX, a life in MX, David Bulmer, David Bulmer is this Brit guy who his lifelong dream was to come and check out the Nationals in the U.S. I don't even know when this was. This is probably 12 years ago. He bought like an RV for $900 or something and drove to all the Nationals barely in this clapped out motorhome. It was called A Year in MX. I think he kept a blog on it. It's back when blogs were hot. But we used to joke that it was a life in MX because Bulmer is still around. Worked for Verb for a long time, and now he's the PR guy for Honda HRC. So he was the one that facilitated the phone call. Mips set that up. And I appreciate the time from Bulmer setting it up with Gajser and Mitch Evans. And that's our show. Thanks to Yoshimura, MX Tech, Just Live, and, of course, Racer X, and you for listening. Got a lot of thoughts on Supercross, but I ran out of time to get them in this week. So I'm just going to recommend, as always, the Race Review podcast with myself and JT. Look up Steve Mathis Show. That's a review of Atlanta 3. A lot of thoughts in there. And my old buddies, DMXS Radio. I was on the show for the first time this year. I used to be on all the time. They finally, I guess, got important enough to have real guests and not just me on all the time, but an epic bench race session with myself, David Iser, and Kevin Kelly. So check out your old DMXS Radio, the original and still best moto podcast, for some of the thoughts on Supercross this year. And also, Mathis and I have a new podcast called The Re-Raceables. We review old races with some of the riders that were in them, and we did it. We did the race that everybody wanted to hear about, and that was Vegas 2017. And we chat with Zach Osborne about the epic comeback to win the 250 title, knocking Joey Savacci down with 2 turns to go in the season to flip the points in his direction. And that's also the night of bunching with Eli Tomac and Ryan Dungey. We cover it all. Wherever you get your pods, just type in The Re-Raceables, and you'll find it. We've done about half a dozen of these so far. Atlanta 89 with Jeff Stanton. We talked to him about his first race win ever. Lots of good stuff on Re-Raceables. So check that out where you get your pods. And I'll be back next week after Salt Lake City. Thanks for listening.